My fiancée and her bridesmaid had been secretly plotting to humiliate me at our wedding. So I called the whole thing off, and what happened next destroyed her reputation completely. I'm 30, and I was supposed to marry Lauren, who's 29, just last week. I'm still reeling. We were together for 5 years, and I honestly thought she was the one. We met at a friend's barbecue. Lauren had this energy, always laughing, always lighting up the space around her. She was smart, stunning, and genuinely hilarious. To be honest, I felt lucky just to be noticed by someone like her. Our first date is one I'll never forget. I'd booked a fancy restaurant, trying to impress her, but the place totally botched our reservation. I was mortified. But Lauren just laughed and suggested we grab hot dogs from a cart and eat in the park. That was the moment I knew she was different. Real. Fun. The first 3 years were like something out of a storybook. She supported me through thick and thin. When my grandfather passed away, Lauren called my job to get me time off, made sure I was eating, and handled the family logistics so I could just grieve. She even left motivational notes in my lunch before big work meetings. One day, she surprised me by learning how to cook my mom's lasagna, just because she knew I missed it. She brought adventure into my life, too. We'd have these spontaneous road trip days, just hop in the car with no plan. She helped me stop overthinking everything and taught me how to just live. My friends absolutely loved her. She turned game nights into laugh fests. Even my shy coworker opened up around her. Everyone clicked with her, well, everyone except my sister. She never said anything openly, but there was always this subtle tension. I didn't pay much attention back then. About 6 months ago, things started to shift. At first, it was little stuff. Lauren began mentioning her ex, Jake, more often, too often. We'd be watching TV and out of nowhere she'd say, "Jake loved this show," or "Jake never got this kind of humor. He was so dull." I brushed it off. Everyone mentions an ex now and then, right? But it kept happening. And then, her sense of humor changed. Lauren had always loved pranks, but they used to be harmless, like swapping my socks for hot pink ones before a big meeting. It was funny. Nobody noticed but us. Now the jokes were biting. Hurtful. When I got a huge promotion I'd worked years for, she didn't congratulate me. At the celebration party, in front of my boss, coworkers, and family, she gave a weird little speech about how I must have gotten lucky, or maybe my boss just felt sorry for me. Everyone went silent. She laughed like it was no big deal. That wasn't the Lauren I knew. The woman who once believed in me more than I believed in myself now mocked me in public. Still, I tried to explain how her jokes made me feel. I told her they hurt. But she'd just roll her eyes and say, "Come on, babe, it's just a joke." Or, "Why are you being so sensitive lately?" Even Ryan, my best friend, noticed. He asked me one night, "Is Lauren okay? She's been acting kind of off." I kept defending her. Maybe it was wedding stress or work pressure. I didn't want to admit she'd changed. I was clinging to who she used to be. The woman who brought me snacks when I was down. Who remembered tiny things I said months ago. Who once made me laugh even when I couldn't smile. But when you're that deep in love, you don't want to see the truth. Looking back is like rewatching a game you already lost. All the signs were there. 2 months before the wedding, things got even weirder. Lauren started mentioning Jake more and more, almost obsessively. And not just casual comments. She'd compare me to him in these twisted compliments. We'd be at dinner and I'd talk about work. She'd smile and say, "This is why you're better than Jake. He couldn't even do basic math. You're managing $1 million accounts." Or I'd be reading nutrition labels at the store, and she'd say, "Jake never cared about this stuff. He'd just grab whatever was cheap. You're so thoughtful." At first, I thought she was just complimenting me in her weird way. But it happened again. And again. And I started to wonder, was she lifting me up, or just keeping me around to make someone else look small? We'd be sitting on the couch watching a space documentary or something like that, and out of nowhere, she'd say stuff like, "Jake would never sit through this kind of thing. It was too much for him. He just watched sports all day." And the weird part? She didn't sound annoyed, more like nostalgic, like she missed how easy everything was with him. Then I started catching on to how glued she was to her phone. It became constant, during meals, while we were watching TV, even when we were supposed to be handling wedding plans. If I walked by, she'd tilt her screen away fast, like she didn't want me to see. I'm not the jealous type, but something wasn't sitting right with me. One night she fell asleep on the couch mid-movie, and her phone lit up for just a second. That was all it took. Jake. My heart just sank. The notification popped up and vanished almost instantly, but I caught it. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Just like that. I couldn't stop staring at the screen even after it went black. Seeing his name there, sitting on her lock screen like it belonged, it hit me hard. We were engaged. Why was he even still in her contacts, let alone messaging her like that? There was a tiny emoji next to the text, harmless on the surface, but my brain exploded with meaning. I tried to calm myself, tried to convince myself it could be innocent. Maybe they were just meeting up about something wedding-related. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. But my gut said otherwise, and deep down I already knew. After that night, I started paying close attention. I tracked where she said she was going, how long she'd be out, and the weird little holes in her stories. She kept talking about these wedding prep meetings with her bridesmaids, but the timelines never made sense. So one afternoon, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed her. I felt ridiculous, like I was acting out some cheap drama, but I had to know the truth. She drove downtown and stopped at a quiet coffee shop. No bridesmaids showed up. No planners. Just him, Jake. He was already there, sitting by the window like he'd done it before. I hung back near a lamppost, feeling like some background extra in a movie I didn't want to be in. My heart was pounding like a jackhammer. What I saw through that window wasn't two old friends catching up. It was something else. They were totally at ease with each other, comfortable, like they had history. Like this wasn't the first time. She laughed at something he said and tilted her head the way she always did when she was flirting. She started twirling a piece of her hair around her finger, flashed him that flirty grin that used to be mine. I felt sick to my stomach. My hands balled up on their own. I wanted to storm in, to demand an explanation right there in front of everyone. But I was frozen. Couldn't move. Couldn't even blink. I just stood there like some clueless idiot watching it all unfold. Me, the guy who thought he was about to marry his best friend, and her, already halfway out the door. When she came home later, I didn't bring it up. Maybe I should have, but something told me to wait, to see how far she was willing to go. Over the next couple weeks, it all started falling apart in slow motion. She'd tell me she was out shopping for dresses with her mom, but then her mom would call me during that exact time asking wedding questions. She claimed she had late work meetings, but a guy from her office, who also happens to be a buddy of mine, mentioned she actually left work early. And her bridesmaids? They were acting shady as hell. Every time I walked into the room, they'd stop talking or shoot each other these knowing looks. Except for one of them, Emily. She's this quiet one who works at the same company I do. Emily always seemed kind of uncomfortable when the other girls were whispering and laughing. I remember one day at the venue, Lauren was going on about how Jake could never afford a place like this, how he still shared a cramped apartment with his old college buddies. But her voice had this weird tone, like she wasn't mocking him, like she thought it was endearing. Then she turned to me and said, "That's why you're so much better, babe. You've got goals." Jake was just simple. And the way she said simple, it didn't sound like an insult. It sounded like a compliment she didn't mean to say out loud. That's when Emily pulled me aside, real hesitant, like she wanted to spill something important. She started with, "Hey, there's something I think you should know," but then Lauren popped back into the room and Emily clammed up and walked off like nothing happened. The final blow came on a random weekday. I wasn't supposed to be home. I'd left work early with a headache, and I caught Lauren talking on the phone out back. She was laughing about something and said, "Yeah, he's totally clueless. Thinks I'm out doing wedding stuff." Then she spotted me through the window and instantly ended the call. She rushed inside, trying to brush it off like she'd been talking to her sister about some surprise for me. But it didn't matter anymore. In that moment, everything snapped into place. I didn't know all the details yet, not about Jake, not about what she was planning for the wedding, but I knew, deep down, it was over. The trust we had was gone. Just gone. And I didn't confront her, not right away. Maybe that makes me petty, but I wanted to find out what she was really up to. All those weird meetups, the offhand comments about Jake, the bridesmaids acting shady, it felt like something bigger was brewing. And knowing how Lauren always loved a good prank, I had a strong feeling this wasn't going to be some harmless joke. Something was coming. Something bad. I never could have guessed what was actually coming. Looking back, maybe I should have just faced it all head on. Maybe I should have called off the wedding right then and there. But honestly, I'm glad I didn't. About 3 weeks before the big day, I found myself parked outside that same coffee shop again, watching Lauren laugh with Jake like it was the most natural thing in the world. That's when something inside me snapped into place. I needed a plan. I've never been the strategic type. That was always Lauren. She loved planning everything down to the last detail. But that day, my instincts were louder than reason. So I picked up my phone and called Ryan, my college buddy turned corporate lawyer. He was sharp, ruthless in the courtroom, and known for his outrageous divorce case stories. More importantly, he never liked Lauren. Ever since she pulled this over-the-top birthday stunt for him, dressed up like a singing telegram and humiliated him in front of his colleagues, he held a quiet grudge. He laughed it off at the time, but I saw it in his eyes. He didn't forget. I told him, man, I think Lauren's cooking something up for the wedding. And it's bad. There was a pause. Then he said, get to my office. Now. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from him in his glass-walled high-rise office, telling him everything. Every red flag. Every shady moment. Every instinct I hadn't trusted until now. He didn't interrupt. Just listened, steepling his fingers under his chin. Then he leaned forward and said, dead serious, you need some insurance. That's when things got interesting. Ryan pulled out a legal pad and started scribbling like he was building a case for trial. He said, we can't stop her if she's planning something. But we can make her think twice. What we came up with was a fake prenup. Completely bogus, wouldn't hold up in any real courtroom. But it looked ironclad. Dozens of pages full of dense, official-sounding language. Most of it I didn't even understand. The key clause, though, was clear. If either party publicly humiliates the other before the signing, all shared financial obligations are nullified, and the offending party is required to issue a formal, public apology. Ryan even cited made-up case law to back it up. He had his secretary notarize it. It looked real. The best part? Lauren wasn't a details person. She once bragged that she never read her apartment lease, just signed it and moved on. Ryan was confident she'd fall for it. I tucked the document into his sleek black folder and handed it to my best man, Chris. Told him not to let it out of his sight. Chris thought I was overreacting, but he knows me better than anyone. He could see how off I was feeling. Even with all that planning, doubt kept creeping in. Was I being paranoid? Was this revenge? Was I becoming someone I didn't recognize? Then I'd remember Lauren's secret meetings, her late-night calls, her shifting moods, the way her bridesmaids clammed up whenever I walked into the room, and the way she still glowed when Jake was around. I wasn't going to use the prenup unless I had to. But if something happened, something public, I wanted to be ready. A few days later, Emily, the quiet bridesmaid, showed up at my office. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes darted around the room like she was debating whether to speak. Finally, she whispered, I don't think I can stay silent anymore. Then her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and her face went pale. It was Lauren. She didn't answer. Just muttered, I'll talk to you soon, and left before I could ask anything. After that, things spiraled. Lauren started taking phone calls in the bathroom with the shower running. She slammed her laptop shut the second I walked into the room. Once, I even saw her deleting texts in the dark, thinking I was asleep. But other times, she'd flip completely, come home with my favorite takeout, cue up movies she knew I loved. It felt like whiplash. Like she was either feeling guilty or trying to distract me. The night before the wedding, I was back at my parents' place. Lauren insisted we do the whole don't see each other before the ceremony thing. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the black folder in my hands. Part of me hoped this was all a big misunderstanding, that she'd just been planning some ridiculous wedding surprise. That's when my mom walked in. She sat beside me quietly, looking at the folder, sensing something was off. After a pause, she said, you know, if you're not sure about this, you don't have to go through with it. I nodded. I'm fine, Mom. I wasn't. That night, I gave the folder to Chris and told him to keep it close. He joked, what is this, a spy mission? Should I expect someone to yell? I object, mid-ceremony? We both forced a laugh, but neither of us really found it funny. The next morning, I got dressed in silence. The venue looked stunning, exactly how Lauren had always dreamed it would. Everything was flawless. Too flawless. As my groomsmen joked around and helped me into my jacket, I felt like I was in a dream. Not a good one. A dream where something was just off. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. But Chris? He was on edge. Kept patting his pocket every few minutes like the folder was a detonator. The rest of the guys teased him for being so uptight. Said he was double-checking the rings. My mom was already crying before the ceremony even started. And all I could think about was that folder. I hoped I wouldn't need it. But deep down, I knew I would. My mom was already crying before anything even started. She thought they were happy tears. My dad kept fussing with my tie, even though it was already perfect. Looking back, I think they both sensed something was off. But maybe, like me, they just didn't want to admit it. I remember standing at the altar, watching people settle into their seats. The bridesmaids were whispering and giggling, every one of them except Emily. She looked pale, like she might be sick. She couldn't even meet my eyes. Then the music started, and everyone rose from their chairs. Lauren entered with her dad on her arm. I won't lie, she looked stunning. Absolutely breathtaking. And somehow, that just made what happened next so much worse. At first, the ceremony felt normal. The officiant spoke about love, loyalty, forever. I almost laughed to myself, thinking maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe I didn't need that folder tucked in Chris's bag after all. Then we got to the vows. Right as I was about to speak, Lauren stepped forward and took the mic from the officiant. He looked confused, but she smiled sweetly, like she had everything under control. Then, in a voice too cheery for the moment, like she was hosting a damn game show, she said, "I've got a fun little surprise for my wonderful groom." My stomach dropped. Chris's hand went straight to his bag. I saw my dad shift forward in his seat, suddenly alert. He knew something was wrong. Then Lauren turned to the crowd, beaming, and announced, "Everyone, please give a warm welcome to the real love of my life." The back doors swung open, and in walked Jake, smug as ever, walking down the aisle like it was his movie moment. Guests turned. Whispers started. Some gasped. My mom's hand shot to her mouth. My sister stood like she was ready to charge the aisle. One of my aunts muttered, "Oh no," under her breath. But Lauren? She lit up like it was the happiest moment of her life. She explained to the guests how she just couldn't say, "I do," without Jake's blessing, how they'd reconnected lately, and he was still such an important part of her life. Then Jake walked right up beside me and clapped me on the back, like we were long-lost buddies. I wanted to knock that smug look off his face. The bridesmaids were cracking up. The officiant looked like he wanted to disappear. Emily had tears running down her cheeks, real ones. And Lauren still wasn't done. She pulled out her phone, turned to me, and grinned. "Oh, and I've got one more thing to share." She started flipping through her messages. "Look, babe," she said, holding up her phone. "We've been having a little fun." My chest tightened. It was a group chat. Her and the bridesmaids. They'd been placing bets. Actual bets on our wedding. One had $200 on her faking cold feet. Another bet $150 that I'd cry during the vows. Chloe? She dropped $300 that Lauren would pull something epic. That was her exact phrase. And there it was, a whole spreadsheet. Odds. Predictions. Back and forth banner. Like this was some twisted fantasy football league and I was the joke. It went back months. Those wedding planning meetups? Turns out, they were brainstorming sessions, ways to make me look like an idiot. Lauren kept scrolling, laughing. "Oh look. Samantha almost nailed it. She said I'd surprise you with a guest." That's basically Jake, right? Jake leaned over her shoulder, chuckling. "Damn," he said. "You really pulled out all the stops." Around us, the guests were buzzing. I saw phones come out. People were recording. Of course they were. This was viral gold. And Lauren just stood there in her spotless white dress, waiting for me to laugh along. Like this was just another prank. Like she hadn't just torched our entire relationship in front of everyone we knew. "Come on, babe," she said, nudging me. "You're not really mad, are you?" "It's just a joke," Jake added, unless I'm supposed to object or something, and they both cracked up. I looked at Chris. He already had the folder halfway out of his bag. But Lauren wasn't done yet. She turned back to the guests and said, "Should I tell them about the backup plan? You know, in case he actually freaked out?" And that's when it hit me. Hard. This wasn't a prank gone too far. This wasn't Lauren being Lauren. This was deliberate. Cruel. Designed to humiliate me. She'd spent months building up to this. Rehearsed it. Involved her friends. Brought her ex into the mix. She turned our wedding into a performance, a grand joke, with me as the punchline. And standing there, watching her smile in front of that crowd, proud of what she'd done, I realized something. I didn't recognize her anymore. That woman in the white dress? She wasn't the person I fell in love with. What I saw standing in front of me wasn't the woman I fell in love with. It was someone who saw my heart as a punchline. Someone who thought betrayal could pass as humor if she delivered it with a smile. Someone who craved attention more than honesty. And in that moment, as I stood at the altar in front of everyone I knew, I realized something. If she wanted a show, I'd give her one she wouldn't forget. I turned toward her and gave her a smile. Not a warm one. Not forgiving. Just calm, measured. Controlled. She smiled back, clearly thinking I was about to laugh it off. Like I was just now getting the joke. I looked at the officiant, who honestly looked like he was seconds away from faking a fainting spell, and asked, "Is that signing table ready? I need to grab something before we continue." He nodded slowly and gestured to his small table at the side of the altar. I walked toward it, where Chris was standing stiff and tense, his eyes locked on mine. The guests were silent, uneasy. You could feel it in the air, like a storm about to hit. Lauren was still grinning, but I saw the shift. Her eyes darted. Her smile twitched. This wasn't part of her plan. I reached into Chris's bag and pulled out the black folder. The one Ryan helped me put together. It looked as real as anything I'd ever seen, slick, stamped, formal. I held it up and turned back toward the crowd. In light of the interesting events we've all witnessed today, I said clearly, I'd like to present a document to my bride-to-be. Lauren tilted her head like she was trying to figure out if this was some kind of joke reversal. Wait, what? I walked back to the altar. My heart was steady. My voice was calm. Lauren, I said gently, this is something my lawyer helped me draft. Just a small precaution. A backup, if you will. Something to cover situations exactly like this. I opened the folder and displayed the notarized stamp. Lauren's smile faltered. Her face went pale. What is that? She asked, her voice sharp now. Tense. It's a clause that states that if either party engages in public humiliation before the marriage license is signed, I said evenly, all shared financial responsibilities, wedding expenses, honeymoon deposits, joint accounts are nullified. Gasps. Real ones this time. Like something cracked open in the room. It also requires a public apology, I added, delivered in front of witnesses. Lauren's eyes widened. You're kidding. That's not real. You can't be serious. Jake stepped in then, like he still had a role to play. Dude, you're not actually going through with this, right? I mean, come on. I looked at him for a beat. Then I smiled again. Wider this time. Oh, I take things very seriously, Jake. Especially when they involve people trying to humiliate me on what was supposed to be the biggest day of my life. Lauren's voice started shaking. Babe, please. This is just a joke. I didn't mean any of it to be serious. That was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. Of course it's a joke, I said. A hilarious one, right? A group chat full of bets on how you could mess with me. Dragging your ex here. Turning our vows into a game. I snapped the folder shut. The sound echoed across the venue. I'm calling off the wedding. The words landed like a slap across the entire room. Lauren took a step forward. Wait, what? No, you don't mean that. I tucked the folder under my arm. You had your fun. Now we're done. Chris stood frozen beside me, but I could feel the pride radiating off him. My mom, still sitting in the front row, had tears in her eyes, but now they weren't tears of heartbreak. She was smiling, just slightly, as if she'd known all along but had waited for me to see it myself. My dad gave me a quiet nod. Strong. Steady. Lauren was spiraling now. You can't just walk away. What about everything we planned? Everything we built? I turned toward the crowd and said, everyone, thank you for being here. We appreciate your time. Unfortunately, the wedding is canceled. My dad stood up and began calmly guiding guests toward the exit, like it was the most normal thing in the world. And honestly, I think some of them were relieved. Jake, meanwhile, had started inching toward the side door, trying not to be noticed. Hey, Jake, I called out. He froze. You like stealing people's fiancés? Cool. She's yours. The color drained from his face. Lauren turned on him in full panic. Jake, tell him it was just a prank. Say something. But Jake was already halfway to the exit. Yeah, I think I'm gonna get out of here. The bridesmaids? Silent now. Not one of them said a word. Not one met my eye. The same women who'd been laughing just minutes earlier now stared at their shoes. And just like that, it was over. The performance was finished. And for the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Some guests were actually laughing. Not awkward chuckles, real, stunned laughter. The kind people let out when they don't know what else to do. And Lauren? She looked like her entire world had just collapsed in on itself. You can't just leave me like this, she called out across the room, her voice high and shaky. I stopped at the end of the aisle, turned around, and met her eyes. Calm. Unshaken. You always wanted to be the center of attention, right? I said. Well, congrats. You got it. Then I turned back and walked straight out of my own wedding. The next 24 hours were surreal. My phone didn't stop buzzing, dozens of texts, missed calls, voicemails, all from Lauren. At first, she pretended not to understand. It was just a joke. You're being too sensitive. You ruined everything over something that was supposed to be funny." Then, just like that, the tone flipped. I was suddenly the villain. She accused me of humiliating her, of walking out without warning, as if none of what she did on that altar had actually happened. The irony would have been funny if it hadn't been so sad. But here's where everything started to unravel for her. Chris, being the legend he is, had managed to screenshot the entire group chat from one of the bridesmaids' phones before we left the venue. Every message, every bet, every smug comment. It didn't take long before those screenshots started circulating. Lauren had tried spinning her own version of the story online, painting herself as the devastated bride left at the altar. She made herself the victim, hoping no one would ask too many questions. But when the receipts came out, the internet turned fast. People were furious, disgusted. The idea of betting on a wedding, of scheming for months just to humiliate someone on their own wedding day, was too much even for strangers. The bridesmaids who'd thought they were so clever? They went silent fast. Megan, the maid of honor, lost out on a major job offer when someone forwarded the screenshots to the company she'd just interviewed with. Turns out, corporate hiring managers don't love the idea of public humiliation as a party game. Others tried to distance themselves. Some deleted social media entirely. None of them reached out to apologize. Jake vanished completely. Blocked Lauren. Ghosted everyone. I guess the whole thing stopped being funny once people started calling it out for what it really was. Then Lauren's parents reached out. Her mom called first, crying, embarrassed, apologizing. She swore she hadn't known what Lauren was planning. Said she'd even warned her not to do anything too playful on the wedding day. Her dad called me separately. He didn't cry. He didn't make excuses. He just said, "I don't blame you. If I were in your shoes, I would have walked too." I believed him. Then came the money. Lauren started demanding I pay her back for the wedding. I almost laughed out loud. Because here's the thing. I'd paid for almost everything. The venue? My credit card. The catering? Mine. The honeymoon Lauren had been bragging about online for months? Booked under my name. All of it. It took me 10 minutes to make a few calls and cancel everything. The venue manager was weirdly understanding. Said he'd seen all kinds of drama, but this one? Top 3 material. The honeymoon agency refunded me without hesitation. Lauren had already been posting countdowns and vacation teasers on Instagram. Now she had to explain why she wasn't in Hawaii. Her friends disappeared almost overnight. The same bridesmaids who helped her plan everything? They stopped answering her texts. No more comments. No more support. Just silence. Even the ones who'd been the loudest at the rehearsal dinner? Gone. And Jake? He never said a word again. Never called. Never messaged. Eventually, Emily, the only bridesmaid who hadn't laughed, reached out. She came to my office. Quiet. Nervous. She said she'd been carrying it for weeks. That she had tried to talk Lauren out of it. Told her it wasn't funny. Told her it would go too far. Lauren didn't care. Said it would be epic. Emily looked exhausted. Said she barely slept the night before the wedding. That she'd wanted to say something when I stood there, clueless, waiting for vows, but she froze. She just kept repeating, "I'm sorry. I should have said something. I should have done more." But I didn't blame her. Because for the first time in weeks, I saw someone who actually cared. Someone who wasn't in it for the chaos. Someone who still had a little decency left. And that meant more to me than she probably realized. A week later, Lauren showed up at my apartment. She looked wrecked, eyes sunken, mascara barely cleaned off, and yeah, she was still wearing the ring. She begged me to talk. Told me she never meant to hurt me. Said she still loved me. That we could fix it. I didn't speak. I just handed her an envelope. Inside was a fake wedding rehearsal invite. Same venue. Same time. Same format. Same fonts. But there was no groom's name. Just one line. "Now we're even." She stared at it for a long time, reading it over and over like she couldn't process it. Then she looked up at me, confused, desperate. I closed the door without a word. A few days later, the videos started surfacing. Clips from guests who'd had their phones out. The audio of Lauren announcing Jake as the real love of her life. The moment I walked out. The moment Chris played Hit the Road, Jack. TikToks. Instagram Reels. YouTube compilations. People started calling her the prank bride who got dumped at the altar. And you know what? That fits her better than wife. Lauren's little prank didn't just blow up. It became a meme. Clips from the wedding spread like wildfire. Her surprise guest, the group chat bets, even Chris playing Hit the Road, Jack, made the rounds online. People turned it all into viral jokes, and suddenly Lauren was that bride, known not for love or commitment, but for humiliation. A few of her friends tried defending her online, saying I should have taken the joke better. But more screenshots kept surfacing, bets, planning, group chats full of mockery. The story spoke for itself. Lauren tried to get to me through mutual friends, telling them she'd learned her lesson, that she wanted to fix things. But each person she reached out to had seen the evidence too, and one by one, she ran out of people willing to back her up. It's been 6 months since the wedding that never happened. Lauren never really recovered. She kept messaging me, sometimes apologizing, sometimes accusing. She wanted another chance. Said we could get past it. But I was already past it. Her bridesmaids, once so loud, drifted away quietly. Megan, the ex, maid of honor, even sent me a long message. Said she regretted everything. Said she wished she'd spoken up sooner. Too little. Too late. Jake? Gone. Ghosted Lauren completely. Blocked her. Last I heard, he moved back home and works at his dad's hardware store. The simple life she once mocked? That's all he's got now. Her parents still apologize when they see anyone from my side of the family. Her mom even sent me a Christmas card, said she still thinks about that day and wishes she'd seen it coming. Her dad? He helped me sell the house Lauren and I were supposed to move into. Said he was glad I walked. But here's the part one didn't see coming. Something good came out of all this. Emily and I started grabbing coffee now and then. Nothing serious at first. Just talking. Listening. It turned out she'd had quiet feelings for me for a while, but she'd never acted on them. Not while I was with Lauren. Not with everything going on. But after the wedding, we talked more. First lunch at work, then dinner here and there. And slowly, it became something real. Emily's nothing like Lauren. She doesn't need to be the loudest person in the room. She doesn't turn moments into stunts. She listens. She thinks. She cares. 3 months after the wedding we made it official. My parents adore her. Even my sister, who never liked Lauren from day one, said Emily's exactly who I needed. And she was right. Lauren eventually found out through mutual friends. Of course, she didn't take it well. Claimed Emily stole me. Said it had all been a setup. No one believed her. Not after what she pulled. The screenshots, the footage, the plan, it was all out there. She tried posting a long apology on Facebook. Said she'd grown. Said she'd learned. Then, 2 days later, she showed up outside my office and tried cornering Emily in the parking lot. Security had to escort her off the property. Meanwhile, my life moved forward. I got a promotion at work. The real kind, the kind I earned. I moved into a new place in a better neighborhood. Emily and I are taking things slow. No pressure. Just peace. Last month, we took a beach vacation. Simple. No photo shoots. No drama. Just real, quiet time. Just us. And that prenup folder? Ryan framed it. Gave it to me for my birthday. It hangs in my home office. Emily thinks it's hilarious. People tell me I dodged a bullet. No, I dodged an artillery strike. Sometimes I look back at old pictures of Lauren and me and wonder how I missed the signs. But when you're wearing rose-colored glasses, red flags just look like part of the decor. Weirdly enough, I'm grateful. If she hadn't shown her true colors that day, I might have married her. I might have spent years being the punchline in a relationship built on ego, attention, and cruelty. Instead, I walked away with a lesson and someone who actually sees me. So, here's where everyone ended up. Lauren? Still single. Back living with her parents. Jake? Back home. Probably stocking shelves. The bridesmaids? Scattered. Quiet. Me? I'm good. I'm actually happy. Sometimes, the worst day of your life leads you to the best thing that's ever happened to you.